Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Week 4. We are making progress. One more to go after today. Thanks for hanging in there with us. Thanks again to all of our hosts and sponsors who make this all possible, provided a lot of great content, and help ensure that this is a free series of sessions for everybody. Week 4, we're making progress. Like I said, some other great sessions today, so definitely stick around if you have time. And just some housekeeping. Again, we are recording this. Everybody knows the routine by now. Please ask questions in the Q&A. Feel free to chat with everyone in the chat box as well. Tell us good morning, where you're from, what's on your mind these days. Happy October 1st, everyone. Happy Breast Cancer Awareness Month, right? Thanks for everybody attending, and please be sure to stick around till the end so you complete the survey. We want feedback. How's this going? What else would you like to hear from in future sessions? And what kind of questions you have, and just tell us how we're doing here. Thank you again so much to Julie Brock and Carrie Bodell with Susan G. Komen for coming and helping put this all together, creating all this great content and being the real thought behind these sessions and helping us put together a great e-communications strategy, right? Again, the goal of the series is, even if you're just starting out, or if it's you've been doing this for years, it's just taking a moment, spending some time and putting together your e-communications plan, breaking it down and thinking about all the different elements. So we've talked about strategy, timing, calls to action, and content. Now we're going to get into design and deliverability. And then next week, we're going to wrap it up in a big bow. And if you've been playing along with the home game, you should have a complete communications calendar all written up by the end of this, right? All right, with that, Carrie, you want to give us a little recap on the homework?
Absolutely. So Mark was kind enough to put together not just recaps on the homework, but also super quick recaps. I said, Mark, you did as great a job as anyone could, consolidating an hour into one slide. So just want to go back to week 1. And remember, we talked about being sure that you understand the strategy of your program before you set your e-com strategy. Also really understanding not just the average. Oh yeah, we're targeting women 35 to 55. Yeah, well, join the club. We all are. And making sure we really understand the next level of depth about who's participating in our programs and how we're talking to them. And then the last one is being very clear about what we need them to do in order to power the programs, create the revenue that fuels our mission so we can change the world. Next, on week 2, we talked more about timing and segmentation, and this was Joanne Collins from Event 360 and Julie on my team. We went a lot deeper into segments and making sure that you understand what type of peer-to-peer fundraising event you're running and how you can get the most bang for your buck with segmenting. We also talked about making sure that you're not just sending an email to send an email. I know, I'll raise our hand. We're guilty of this sometimes. We're so eager to get people engaged and registering. We don't necessarily come up with new, interesting, enticing offers for people. So making sure that we're thinking creatively about that. Also, we provided some sample schedules and getting really clear on what your message is, who you're talking to, and when you're saying it. Some really good tools presented that week. We then started to talk about calls to action and ask, and just getting really clear that you've got to have a very clear CTA, and then you've got to have the content to back that up. We also talked about mapping all of it out before you start to write your copy, being sure that you're really clear on the nuts and bolts and the core messages, what you need to accomplish before you toss it to a copywriter or you yourself start writing copy, making sure that you know what the message needs to accomplish. We also talked a little bit about some people need to know why they should start fundraising. And those are the people who say, oh, I don't want to fundraise, or I'm not planning to fundraise, or people who just haven't started. And they need to be convinced about what their effort will do. And then people who say, yeah, I'm planning to fundraise, or who have a long history of good fundraising, or even people who have started fundraising, they need to know more about the how. So figuring out who needs a why and who needs a how. And with that, lots of homework, and these are just recaps here. We're not going to go through all of these check marks, but as Mark mentioned, if you've been playing along, you should complete this with a really clear understanding of what your opportunities are from an e-com strategy point of view, and then also what you need to build in terms of timing, segmentation, how you're talking to different people differently to inspire them to do what you want them to do, and then how to provide the content and the really clear calls to action to move them along that participant journey. So I'm assuming you've all done it flawlessly. So on this Friday, 1st of October, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we're giving you all an A+, and it's a great way to start the month. With that, I'm going to hand it back over to Mark and Amber.
Awesome. Thanks, Carrie. And I wanted to introduce Amber Love. She's the art director with Cathexis Partners, does a lot of great design. She's also an artist herself. She's going to share a lot of great thoughts and some great elements on design. And so Amber, take it away. Let me see if I can stop sharing my screen here. And you should be able to share yours.
Okay. Can you guys see my screen?
Not yet. Now here it comes.
Okay.
Perfect. Now just,
sorry guys, play from print slide. Okay, so I'm Amber Love. I'm art director with Cathexis Partners, and I've been working in the nonprofit space for roughly 20 years. Specifically building and designing peer-to-peer fundraising campaigns with Cathexis Partners for a little over half of that. And I'm happy to be here with you guys today, knowledge sharing. So apologies for this crazy screen, but how are we going to get supporters' attention and keep it? And the answer is through great email design practices. So I'll walk you through some of those best practices to help you get there. So specifically, I'll talk about these elements of design, including enticing content to include prominent CTAs, brand guidelines, consistency, and necessary departures, general design, so that includes header, the usage of space, image usage, the footer, and backgrounds, responsive design to include text styling, and motion usage. So on enticing content, you want to create it and you want to design it well. And you can do that creatively, utilizing things like storytelling and KISS method. So with storytelling, this example you see here is a really nice example. It's helpful to break up your content by mixing it up in eye-catching and engaging ways using your graphics and imagery. And I changed the KISS method, which was kind of mean to begin with, to keep it short and simple. And that just involves breaking your content up into short sections and to help it be more consumable. And this email you see here is a great example of that. It tells a really cool story of a vacation and the products included within. And you can tell your own story with your P2P emails, possibly telling a fundraising journey or to break up your notifications and information with interesting tie-ins along the way to keep people engaged. And just remember to use supportive graphics and photos. So CTAs, your calls to action, these are hugely important. Obviously, you want to make sure that they're highly visible, and you want to make sure to use high contrast. As you see here, white on black is pretty much perfect. But whatever you can use in your color scheme to be high contrast. You want to keep space around your calls to action so that they're really easy to find, and make them large enough for mobile. So we all have clumsy fingers and big thumbs, and you want to account for that. And Brand guidelines, obviously hugely important. Many organizations have specific guidelines unique to their event, and Komen's 3-day is a great example. Within this, the image on this slide really exemplifies how the unique event branding can be utilized through all the marketing efforts of the campaign. This is just a beautiful example of that. Some examples of these elements that you see here and that you should be focused on are your image styles. Here you see a really nice usage of black and white imagery used throughout, and that helps to continue to hit those brand guidelines home. Type treatments, the use of fonts and the way they're set together is very important, and you see that done beautifully here with the commit 3 days. And the way that they also use it vertically, which is part of the branding as well. Your tone of voice is really important. So for example, here you see a very serious use of images versus playful, and that's very much a part of the branding. And then your color treatments, obviously you want to stay really on brand with your colors. So also very well exemplified here with the pink and black. And consistency is a really big deal. You want to be consistent. You want to focus obviously on the event brand guidelines versus the organization brand guidelines, and be consistent with this throughout, that your email is utilizing tools such as your color treatments, your font treatments, your headings and body copy fonts should stay the same throughout. Your heading styles, so you see a really nice example of that done here with the We Are 3-Day Nation overlaying the black and white image. That's very much a part of the brand guidelines. Your button styles are really important to keep those consistent. You know, if you're using like 90-degree angles or, rectangles, circles, or rounded edges, you want to stay consistent with those styles. And line treatments, you can use that throughout to continue to hit home the branding. And then also your footer styling is really important. Just make sure that stays consistent throughout. And there's some necessary departures to all of that that should be considered. We've already talked a little bit about the event-specific branding, but a lot of times that's a departure from the organization-specific branding. So it's important to focus, very heavily on the event-specific branding with your email campaigns to just keep those in line. And fonts are a big one. Some fonts will work on people's machines and some will not. So it's very specific to the email client the user's using and their operating system. So some design methods to work around that. You should design for both ways in which this might come through. So you can utilize font stacks in your HTML to account for that. I just showed a quick example of that over here on the right. But your desired font might be Avenir or something, and then your fallback plan is going to always probably be Arial for a sans serif, or maybe Georgia or Times for your serif. But just make sure you have some nice font stacks in there to account for those fonts working or not working, and plan for both so that your email will stand up both ways. And then just some general design guidelines to be aware of. The area of an email is 300 by 600, or sorry, not 300 by 600, 600 pixels wide. So, and that gives you about, you have 300 pixels on the top with which to work for the header. And so it's very important space. We don't have a lot of space, so that's probably the most important, and you want to use it to grab attention. So some great header goals to help you do that. Obviously, you want to include your brand name and logo. And you also can include some simplified navigation depending on your needs. You see a nice example of that here with the 3day.org. You might want to include a powerful headline, and that's also done really nicely here with the We Are 3-Day Nation. You can include a call to action. It's not necessary, but it's always a good idea if you can get it up that high. Use it to create interest and entice the user. You want to grab their attention and encourage them to scroll for more, and utilize this top 300 pixels to do that. The alt text is also really important. You want to utilize the alt text to make your message more impactful. It can also help the way email clients receive the emails, and it can improve engagement for subscribers using their screen readers. So usage of space. Don't be afraid to take up space. You can and you should. Images are invigorating and enticing, so you want to give them room to breathe, and you also want to give your text room to breathe for better legibility. So you see that done very beautifully here with this Giving Tuesday email. Everything has room to breathe and is very easy to consume. And image usage, utilize on-brand images. You know, we saw that done beautifully for Komen, and this is just another example for Giving Tuesday. Give your images a significant amount of breathing room so that people can see them easily, and that separation of content is really important, just to allow people to better consume the information in a clean and breathable way. And don't neglect the footer. A lot of people neglect the footer, but it can be a really nice usable space to do some things like emphasize your message or call to action. You can promote content like blog and social media. You can place special offers down there. You can provide useful links, and some design elements to help you do that. You can utilize a nice use of space, alignment practices, some line treatments, possibly some symbols. And I included this example here. I know kombucha doesn't have too much to do with nonprofits, but this is a really beautiful example of a great footer. And here you see highlighted very clear social follows, some really obvious social media links, and really easy to find contact information. So, you know, all these things really come together beautifully, and just don't neglect it. You can use the footer for a lot of things, and obviously you want to be consistent with that footer throughout. And then backgrounds are important to touch on. We're asked a lot to include background textures and colors and fills in our email campaigns that we design. And you might be tempted to include them, and that's okay, but just make sure that your design stands up without them, because they won't always be visible in a lot of people's email clients. So just know that the design must stand up without that background included. And responsive design considerations are huge, because more than 70% of people read their email on mobile, and that's top priority. So some things that can help you plan for that. It means that you need to keep your font sizes large, 14 points or above, and allow plenty of space between your text and images so that people can easily consume the information and it's not jumbled and everything can breathe. Keep your calls to action very large and well spaced to keep everything clean and clumsy thumb ready. And then text styling. This is really a big deal for responsive. It's changed a lot, you know, from basic text styling before. You want to obviously, like we talked about, keep it large and easy to read. You want to keep the copy in small snippets of information. Responsive means things need to size down cleanly. So you want to, when possible, aim for center alignment of text. That's kind of a big deal these days. Because email clients block images, you want to make sure the type design works well without the images. And this example I'm showing, this streaming example, is a really beautiful example of that. And usage of motion. So animation is fun, and it's fun to include. We are asked a lot to include videos and emails. Videos and emails are usually not supported, so it's a kind of a best practice to create a thumbnail and link to the video. You know, you could include a play button or something, and then have it open on the provider website or your own hosted video on your website. But another fun idea to include motion, if you like, is, you know, animated GIFs are usually supported. So you can always create visual interests utilizing some animated GIFs, and just make sure to keep your file size low, or else that overall file size will climb. And with that, Mark is going to join us again. But, you know, as far as my observations on this recruitment slide, I think this is a very beautiful example of some of those best practices, design practices coming into play. You see very clearly the register now buttons and the special offer for the 40% off. And so it's a beautiful example of recruitment on that.
Definitely. Yeah, thanks for all that, Amber. Let me share my screen here again. All right. So yeah, while our team didn't do the design, I want to make sure that's clear. We're not saying that we did work with Coleman and the Event 360 team on other elements of the 3-day and many of their other campaigns. But we just thought this was a great example of great branding, a great design, usage kind of throughout. And being that it's the 1st of October, totally made sense to talk about the 3-day, and Breast Cancer Awareness Month was a great timing. So wanted to give a huge shout out to the team there for coming up with these. So they have great, you know, recruitment images, fundraising throughout. This is actually how I first got into the nonprofit space, was volunteering for the 3-day when it used to come through Chicago when I lived up in that area back in the previous century, before the turn of the century, as they say. That's just how old I am. But love their mission, love how they have both sides of it, right? They have a serious tone, but they also, you know, show the fun and the experience of the event itself. Even when they switched to virtual for the last couple of years, and this year with the 3-day nation, which is their virtual version, they still communicate the cause and do a great job with their fundraising efforts and coaching to help people, you know, get ready to do those long walks, even if it is virtual in nature. Having folks still get out there and walk for the cause, and always having the brand, the design, everything, you know, on target, along with the sponsorships and everything else. I don't know, Amber, anything else to add?
No, I agree with all that. And this is just, yeah, obviously a beautiful design version of everything we've been talking about. So.
And then just wanted to add this slide actually this morning. Yesterday sent out the email on the left, which was announcing their 2022 season, that they're going to go do in person again for the first time in a couple of years. Yay, that they're going to be back out there again. And then off to the right is a screenshot of the homepage with the announcements of this year's campaigns, remaining campaigns, and next year's. So yeah, 3-day nation, which is their virtual one, actually kicks off this weekend. So good luck to them. I know that Carrie and Julie and the rest of the team over there is very busy, not only with this, but all of their other campaigns and different items that are running this month. So great to see everything they're doing. Now let me kind of switch directions here a little bit and talk a bit about deliverability, right? So you've created these great designs, but you, as Amber alluded to and mentioned in some of her slides, you have to make sure that it's being interpreted and received the way that you meant it to be received, right? Because not everything is going to look the same at the destination. And there's two different areas that affect your email client environment, right? There's where you're sending it from, if it's, you know, out of TeamRaiser or Classy or MailChimp or Donor Drive or what have you, right? Emma, Marketing Cloud, whatever you're sending it from, that'll affect its deliverability and how it gets sent and what you're capable of doing as far as pre-scheduling and customizing content, that type of thing. But then there's also the email client and the platform that it's being viewed on, right? Is the person using Outlook, or are they using Gmail, and are they accessing or via Apple, or via an iPhone, or via an Android, and what does that look like? And all of that matters, right? Luckily, there's some tools out there that you can use to check all of this. One thing you could do is have a bunch of, and I've seen this happen quite frequently, is you just have end users, staff, or volunteers that are using different platforms, and you send out test emails and get any feedback. But a more efficient way is to use technology. What I have a screenshot here on the left is actually Email on Acid, which you can have check a variety of different clients and what that would look like when viewed in those different clients, because it just because you built it a certain way, and by no means says it's going to be displayed that same way on the other end. Another big topic lately is when it comes to deliverability of emails is Apple Mail blocking email tracking pixels. So with their new iOS system just out last week, it's going to be, as people start upgrading to it, getting new iPhones, probably really more so but more so in the new year. It's going to be a bigger issue as more folks get the new operating system for Apple. That is going to make a difference. We could have a whole session on this very topic, but to completely oversimplify it and summarize, just know that a lot of things are going to be less accurate when it comes to you reviewing your email deliverability reports. The open rates, because Apple is actually going to take on their server and make it download the pixels and make it seem like the email is open, even if you never open it. And the geo targeting is going to be less accurate, because your user, as an iPhone user, the IP address is masked. So if you try to geo target someone's email and have conditionalized content in there based on their location, you probably shouldn't do that, or you should definitely have some backup content, general content available, because there's no guarantee you're actually going to know where they're checking that from. And the device and client segmentation, same thing, blocks the devices and the operating systems. So you can't, a lot of information is a lot less accurate. And open rates were always kind of sketchy anyways, because like with Outlook, if you had it open in the preview screen, it would show as open. So they were always a little bit less reliable than click through and action taken type of reports. So this is even more reason to put less reliability on the open rates. But we should be seeing those open rates increase over time, and don't automatically assume it's because your content has gotten that much more attention. It might just be the systems on the other end automatically making it look like they were open. So there's some different platforms. This is just a few of them that will help with content deliverability. And monitor this type of thing. So Email on Acid, Mail Monitor, Validity. There's tons of others, and probably the lowest cost option out of these three, I'm guessing, is Email on Acid. Pretty reasonable rate where you can have it run through and test different emails, but they also all have different capabilities. And there's, like I said, other platforms out there and services that can help with reviewing your email deliverability. When it talks about email deliverability rate, another grossly oversimplified slide here. Again, this could be a whole topic for a whole other session, but I'm not going to cover it in that depth today. But know what your deliverability rate is, right? There's research out there that you should be going for at least a goal of at least 95%. And there's a lot of things that can affect your deliverability rate, spam traps, a whole litany of things. But probably the easiest low-hanging fruit to address your deliverability rate is review your hard and soft bounces, and make sure you're addressing those. The system that you're sending from may be dealing with those automatically. After so many soft bounces, it becomes a hard bounce and it won't send out emails to those addresses again. But sometimes you can throttle those or change those settings yourself, or you can always just manually opt people out or exclude soft bounces from emails if you are concerned about your deliverability rate, because you don't want to be listed, blacklisted for having bad deliverability, kind of looking like a spammer. So another thing you can do is provide a preference center so folks can choose what emails they receive. That also helps so it's less likely for the nuclear option of someone receiving an email from you and saying unsubscribe, and if they just unsubscribed, then they'll end up just being stuck, not getting anything from you. But if you give them a list of options when they're on that page, then they're more likely to still hang around. I don't know, Julie, anything to add to any of that?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to give a real world example to everybody. I think Carrie and I from the outset said, yeah, we're here with Susan G. Komen, but that doesn't mean we get everything right. So one of the things that we have been looking at with our current ecom programs for our P2P series with Race Walk is that deliverability rate, and looking at why do these numbers look so low. And we've employed a number of different systems, but one of them being Mail Monitor. And we have learned through that process that number one, emails delivered to Outlook email addresses and Yahoo email addresses straight up weren't being delivered. So that was a whole segment of our audience that wasn't even getting our emails. And then because there were a number of Outlook and Yahoo email addresses on our sender lists, because they weren't getting delivered by the receiving systems, then essentially our score was being dropped. And then it lessened the ability for those emails to send through people who weren't using Outlook and Yahoo. So it seems to be a whole cycle of things that are tied in together. And that's why it's really important to just every once in a while, see if you can take a look at this, make sure your lists are clean. We also found out in our review, just what Mark pointed out, reviewing those hard and soft bounces, our system for whatever reason had stopped taking those out of a sender list. So again, because we were sending to people whose emails were bad, it was lowering our potential for going through to good email addresses, hurting our open rates and our deliverability rates. So you think, oh, I guess I have an industry standard 15 to 20% open rate. That's not too bad. But if you stop and do a little research when you have that time to look at the true numbers and what's behind it, you might be able to improve that even more. And imagine how much further we could get on a daily basis with communicating with our potential participants if our emails were truly functioning to their max potential. So this might be a single slide and 3 fabulous little buttons, but we're learning at Komen, and I hope we can pass this information on to you, just how important it is to really do the reviews and make your emails work the best for you.
I think that's so important. And thanks for sharing that, because even though you do have a deliverability, rate of over 95%, and, you have the platform that's monitoring all these things and supposed to be doing all of this, it was your team that took the time, and found and did the research and found this out. So, it's great, automation and all these things are terrific, but it's also good to, when you have time, and hopefully you can find the time to dig in there and go beyond and just dig a bit deeper into what you're seeing and see if there's any trends and any possible holes. So yeah, I think that's so valuable. Thanks for sharing that, Julie. All right, now let's talk about accessibility a bit. Again, could be a whole nother session, and has been sessions, a lot of great sessions out there, but just kind of accessibility, thinking about folks, 15, this is globally, a few stats, about 15% live with some sort of disability. Over 2 billion people worldwide have some level of vision impairment. Hearing impairment is the third most reported chronic problem among aged population. And actually 65% of people with hearing loss are younger than retirement age. And 1 in 12 men and 1 in 200 women experience some level of color blindness. I think I fall into that category. At least that's what my wife tells me whenever we say, "Oh, look at that house, the blue one. You mean the green one?" Yeah. So yes, I even have that to some level. Not to make light of it, but it does affect a lot of folks. And around 5 to 10% of the global population is dyslexic. So accessibility can mean a lot of different things, right? But think about these things as you're considering and looking at your design and your fonts and your content as a whole. There's a great article that I reference here on the slide. Yes, it's 4 years old now, but I've seen some newer articles posted that still reference a lot of the same elements. So I think it's a great article. Also, another great resource is W3C. w3.org/WAI, which is short for Web Accessibility Initiative. A lot of great information out there, tons of it. Again, oversimplifying, but summarizing it: choose legible fonts, space fonts. White space is your friend, right? It's like extended silences or pauses when you're speaking. It always feels like it's too long, but it's not. Same thing with white space. More white space is okay. Avoid center aligned paragraphs, maintain a logical reading structures. So screen readers, because they do normally just read from right to left. I'm sorry, left to right. So you don't want to kind of get too crafty or cool with how you're structuring things, because someone that's using a screen reader, it wouldn't make sense to them. I don't know, Amber, anything to add to any of that?
Nope, that's perfect.
All right. So how did we get through this so quickly? I love it. And we're efficient. But that brings us to our homework actually for the week, right? This is all about gathering inspiration. Amber, what do you mean when we say that?
So it's just so important to have inspiration, designs, and kind of best practices, emails saved when you're going to embark on your journey of designing it yourself. The way I do that is I keep a folder on my email client for great design, and it can be any kind of design, and you can relate it in different ways to your own personal goals. So it's nice to keep those things on hand. Or you can also use a Pinterest board, if you're seeing some great email designs online, and, obviously you're reacting to some of those elements that could work for you. And also just create mood boards. It's old fashioned, but it still works, and it's still a great practice. So, that's from my perspective, what gathering inspiration is all about.
And I think that's really important, because actually, when we first put this together, the first item we had listed was gather images, but it kind of starts before that, right? What's the feeling? What's the tone? What are you going for? And then the images will kind of hone in, because gathering images could be a lot, and hopefully, you have a lot to, if it's a legacy event, right? You can bring in images from past events or campaigns. Again, quite often we're talking a lot about physical events, but it doesn't have to be a physical event. It could be a virtual campaign. You might or might not have images then, but hopefully, folks are submitting pictures, videos, or you have their personal pages that they've used in the past. If you get the rights, request that they, if you ask if you can share those and use those, they'll be honored in most cases to do so. But you might also have other images from organizational activities, again, other campaigns. And then stock photos are another option. Any advice or comments about images or stock photos, Amber?
No, I mean, there's so many great stock photo resources out there. Just whatever works for your organization.
Yeah, and there's some free ones available out there that have stock images, but most of them, there's a lot of great ones that you can buy imagery for pretty low cost as well. But obviously, whenever you can go organic, something original of your own, much better, and even more so, something that from your constituents, bring them involved, get them involved. So yeah, other homework, continue writing the messages, started last week, recruitment, fundraising, coaching. And as we talked about, verify your deliverability rate, and time permitting, dig into it a bit further and look at your soft bounces and see if there's any trends in your non-deliverable or undeliverable messages. There was a question here, so I'm going to go back. I think, yeah, we made a little bit of a contrasting statement here along the way, where for accessibility, avoid center aligned paragraphs, but someone was asking, can we, did I misunderstand the earlier statement that we want center aligned paragraphs for mobile? I think that might have been on one of your slides, Amber, but it's kind of, weighing accessibility, readability on a phone, and making sure you're spatially aware of where things are going to align on a phone versus a desktop versus that. Anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I can definitely add to that. So as far as centering goes, I might have been a little bit confusing on my slide, but it's more the headlines that you'd like centered, because that's going to, from a design perspective, that's just going to size down nice and neatly. But your text can be left aligned and go fit in with those headlines very beautifully and easily. So for accessibility, you'd probably want to left align most of your heavy content and center align your headlines.
That makes sense. And Misha just put in the chat, our team has been actively working on our email list as we transition to a new system and been able to reduce the soft bounces to less than 1%. Well done, right? And that's quite often the time that people take the time to really do the house cleaning when they're migrating from one system to another. So yeah, shout out to Misha thanks for sharing that. But yeah, it is a good opportunity to do that. But I would put out there, do it more often. Easy for me to sit here in my office, on a Friday afternoon and say that when you're probably doing 10 different things, if not more. But try to put it on your calendar, quarterly, once every 6 months, once a year, more often if you can, if it's somebody's job, if you have that scalability and you have the IT staff or whoever can be assigned that task. But yeah, looking at these things is always easier to preach from a chair than actually in reality. And we understand that sometimes you might be a team of one, right? Feel free to ask any other questions, but I'm not seeing any at the moment. But I do want to, again, thank everybody for their time. Thank Julie and Carrie for their involvement in all of this. Amber, thank you so much for your thoughts on design. And please, everybody, enjoy the rest of the sessions today. There is a virtual walk coming up a little bit later again today. Give you a chance to get out and walk around virtually with other folks. You walk around for real, but you're virtually with other people. And any other final thoughts before we wrap up, Amber?
Nope, just thanks a lot for including me. And it was a fun experience. Hope everyone enjoys their Friday.
Oh, there was one more question that came in. I do want to address it. Looking for social media ideas that go with emails. And I think, I don't know if Julie or Carrie want to drop in any additional thoughts and or Amber on that. But we thought about that when putting this session together, the whole workshop is like, do we address social media? And what we really are saying is basically build your e-communications calendar, your email communications calendar first, and then use snippets, the themes of those weeks or those messages to include in your social media posts. So as you're going through the season, your recruitment and or fundraising and coaching, have those same messages be broken up for your social media posts and or vice versa. I don't know, Amber, anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great way to bring in the storytelling that I was talking about earlier. You can tease some of your storytelling through your email and then follow up through social media or vice versa. It's just a fabulous way to get people bouncing back and forth between your marketing materials.
Great stuff. Yeah, great question. So yeah, thanks again, everybody. As an end result of this, we are looking at turning this into a workbook, so that this will all, each week's, kind of building on it will actually be a physical workbook. I'm not promising how soon that's going to be out. Probably Q1 of next year. By the time we can design, we can put it all together, and then we got to give it to Amber to design it, so it looks great. So there is going to be a physical takeaway from all of this down the road, but hopefully week by week you've been playing along. Even if you're watching this after the fact, you can follow along and hopefully get all of this. There was one more question. Are these sessions available after the last day? Yes, they will be up. Available on peertopeerworld.com. You can just go to the site and there's an archive section where you can always go ahead and view those. So thank you, everybody. Thanks for all your involvement, everybody that could attend today, and everybody have a great weekend.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, have a good one.